paycheck-to-paycheck. 7 Secret Money Rules Rich Boomers Exposed to Their Kids. I interviewed 23 wealthy families and found the exact money lessons they pass down that schools deliberately ignore. And the third rule on this list made me physically angry because it is so simple, so obvious. And yet, I spent my entire 20s doing the exact opposite. One father, worth $11 million, told me he taught his kids this rule when they were 8 years old. 8. Meanwhile, you and I were learning about the Pythagorean theorem. Here is what nobody tells you about generational wealth. It is not about trust funds. It is not about inheritance. It is about conversations that happen at dinner tables, in wealthy households that never happen in middle-class homes. I spent 4 months tracking down these families through private wealth advisors, country club connections, and frankly, some awkward LinkedIn messages. What I found was a playbook. An actual, repeatable system of money beliefs that rich parents drill into their kids, starting before they can even spell the word compound interest. By the end of this video, you are going to know the exact debt rule that one family credits for their $47 million net worth, why rich families actively encourage their kids to fail at something specific before age 25, and the one question a billionaire grandfather asks his grandchildren every single Sunday that has produced 3 successful entrepreneurs in one family. But the rule that changed my own finances the most, that is number 5. And I almost did not include it because it felt too simple. Stick around. The first rule wealthy boomers teach their kids sounds backwards. They call it the 90-day test, and it goes like this. Before you buy anything over $300, you write it down on a piece of paper with the date. Then you put that paper in a drawer. If 90 days later you still want that thing, and you can explain why in one sentence, you buy it. If you forgot about it, you just saved yourself $300 or more. Now that sounds basic. But here is where it gets interesting. I talked to a woman named Patricia, whose father was a commercial real estate developer worth somewhere north of $20 million. She told me her dad made her do this starting at age 14, not with his money, with her babysitting money. Her first 90-day test was a $200 straightening iron. She wrote it down. 90 days later, she could not remember why she wanted that specific one, so she did not buy it. She told me that by age 22, she had saved over $11,000 just from things she thought she wanted, but actually did not. Here is the psychology behind this. Wealthy families understand that your brain experiences the desire to buy something almost identically to the pleasure of actually owning it. That dopamine hit you get when you click Add to Cart, that is the peak. Ownership is actually a letdown. The 90-day test forces a gap between impulse and action, and in that gap, you find out what you actually value versus what marketing made you think you value. I started doing this 8 months ago. I have a note in my phone right now with 14 items on it. 9 of them I completely forgot about. That is over $4,000 still in my account. The second rule is about debt, and this is where I need you to pay close attention because this single concept separates wealthy families from everyone else. Rich boomers teach their kids that there are 2 types of debt: debt that makes you money and debt that costs you money. Sounds obvious. It is not. I spoke with a retired banker named Howard who built a $47 million net worth over his career. He told me the rule he drilled into his 3 sons was this: never borrow money to buy something that loses value, ever. Cars, furniture, vacations, clothes, you pay cash or you do not buy it. But here is the twist. He actively encouraged his sons to take on debt for things that appreciate or generate income: real estate, business equipment, education that leads to a specific high-paying skill. His middle son, Marcus, is 34 now. He has never had a car payment. He drives a 9-year-old Honda Accord. But he has $800,000 in rental property debt that generates $6,000 a month in cash flow after all expenses. Same dollar amount of debt as someone with a luxury car, student loans, and credit card balances. Completely different outcome. Howard told me something that stuck with me. He said most Americans use debt to look rich. His family uses debt to become rich. The difference is whether the debt pays you back or whether you pay the debt back forever. And this connects directly to the next rule, which is the one I said made me angry. It is about a concept wealthy families call the invisible tax, and once you understand it, you cannot unsee it. The invisible tax is what rich families call the extra cost of being broke or middle class. And it is everywhere once you know how to look. Think about this. When you have bad credit, you pay higher interest rates on everything. Car insurance costs more if you have a lower credit score in most states. When you cannot afford to buy in bulk, you pay more per unit at the grocery store. When you cannot afford a reliable car, you pay for rippers, missed work, and late fees when those repairs make you miss a payment on something else. I interviewed a family where the grandfather grew up poor in rural Ohio. He is worth $8 million now. He told me he calculated that being poor cost his family an extra $9,000 per year in what he calls poverty premiums. Higher interest, late fees, emergency borrowing costs, buying cheap things that break and need to be replaced. $9,000 a year. Over a 40-year career, that is $360,000. Invested at 7%, that would be worth over $1.8 million. He teaches his grandchildren this. Your first financial goal is not to get rich. It is to escape the invisible tax. Build a $1,000 emergency fund. Then build a 3-month expense buffer. Then eliminate high-interest debt. Only then do you start investing aggressively, because every dollar you lose to the invisible tax is a dollar that cannot compound for the next 50 years. If this is hitting different for you, hit subscribe. I drop one of these every single day, and the next one is about the exact sequence wealthy families use to build that first buffer without feeling like you are suffering. Now, if you are creating any kind of content around this stuff, whether it is explaining these concepts to your friends, starting a podcast, or building a side business teaching financial literacy, you need to sound professional. I have been using 11 Labs at try.11labs.io 2PU1009Y92JL1 to create voiceovers that do not sound robotic. The AI voice quality is honestly scary good, and it has saved me probably 40 hours this month alone. Rule 4 is actionable, and you can start today. Wealthy families call it the 10% escalator. Here is how it works. Every single time you get a raise, a bonus, a tax refund, any increase in income at all, you immediately redirect 10% of that increase to investments before you ever see it in your checking account. The key word is increase. You are not cutting your current lifestyle. You are just capturing 10% of every improvement before lifestyle creep can eat it. I talked to a software engineer whose parents taught him this at his first job, making $52,000. He is 41 now, making $180,000. He never felt a single one of those raises because he immediately captured 10%. He showed me his spreadsheet. That one habit alone has put over $340,000 into his investment accounts. He did not budget obsessively. He did not track every coffee. He just automated one rule and let time do the work. You can set this up in 20 minutes. Log into your payroll system. Find the percentage contribution to your 401k, or set up an automatic transfer to a brokerage account. Next raise you get, increase that percentage. Done. The fifth rule is the one most videos skip because it sounds unproductive. Wealthy families encourage their kids to fail at a business before age 25. Not metaphorically, actually fail. Lose money. Feel the sting. I was skeptical about this until I heard the reasoning. A father who built and sold a manufacturing company for $31 million told me this. Failure at 23 costs you maybe $5,000 or $10,000 and some embarrassment. Failure at 43 can cost you your house, your marriage, and your retirement. He gave each of his 3 kids $10,000 at age 20 with one condition. They had to start a business. Any business. And they were not allowed to save it. They had to risk it. 2 of them failed completely. One lost the full $10,000 on a clothing brand that sold 11 units. The other lost $7,000 on a tutoring service that never got traction. The third kid turned $10,000 into a small digital marketing agency now worth about $2 million. But here is the thing the father told me. He is equally proud of all 3, because the 2 who failed learned more about risk, about markets, about themselves than any MBA could teach them. And they learned it when the stakes were low enough to recover. His daughter, who lost the full $10,000, is now the CFO of a mid-sized company. She told me that failure taught her what she did not know, and that lesson has made her millions in avoided mistakes throughout her career. Rules 6 and 7 are faster because by now you are getting the pattern. Rule 6 is called the Sunday question. Remember the billionaire grandfather I mentioned at the beginning? Every Sunday dinner, he asks his grandchildren the same question. What did you learn about money this week? Not how much did you make? Not what did you buy? What did you learn? This forces constant financial education. His grandchildren research one money concept every week just to have an answer. Over a year, that is 52 money lessons. Over a childhood, that is hundreds of hours of self-directed financial education that no school provides. 3 of his grandchildren have started businesses. 1 just got accepted to Stanford's MBA program. The habit of learning compounds just like money does. Rule 7 is the shortest but maybe the most important. Rich boomers teach their kids to buy assets before luxuries. Not instead of luxuries. Before them.